Welcome to Modern Home Mastermind with Bespoke Brokers. I'm Shauna Glazier, designated broker and owner.
And I'm Brittany Williamson, associate broker. Shauna and I are Bespoke Real Estate, but we're also your guides to modern luxury across the entire state of Arizona.
Each week, we chat with masterminds shaping the modern spaces. Do you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at your design-build team's processes? Well, open communication and teamwork will lead you to a successful project.
From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right. Well, what can decades of experience, including time spent working along some of Arizona's most iconic architects, teach us about designing homes that truly stand the test of time? Today, architect Eric Spry is here to help us answer that question.
That's right. Eric's the founder of Spry Architecture, a Phoenix-based architecture firm known for its bold yet harmonious approach to desert modernism. Eric has been designing homes for more than 40 years, designing his first award-winning home at only 15 years old, and has been recognized by HGTV, Phoenix Home & Garden, House, and multiple national architecture publications for his work across Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Carefree, and beyond.
Wow, welcome.
Wow, that sounds great. Thank you. Yeah.
I didn't know from 15 years old, huh?
Yeah, I designed a house. I was a freshman in high school and designed a house. My teacher submitted it to a contest and it did well. And so, yeah, I was kind of caught,
Put on
Your
the path.
destiny.
Yeah, at that point, I was like, well, this is fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was good. I had a great high school. I went to a terrific high school.
Yeah, was
Great
that in
teacher.
Arizona?
That was in Detroit.
Detroit.
Yeah, Bill Palm was my teacher. So shout out to Bill Palm.
There you go. You have to
Yeah.
send him this episode.
Yep.
All right. So you've been designing homes in Arizona for decades, right? And worked under architects like Chuck Johnson and Gordy Rogers early in your career. What lessons from those experiences still shape the way that you design today?
Yeah, so I love talking about Chuck and Gordy. They were not just great architects, but really good people. And so I was 22 years old when I started working for Chuck, and I had come from Michigan and called him because I wanted to see a house that he had done in Scottsdale, the Boulder House, MP house. And he said no, I couldn't see the house because the MPs were kind of grumpy about having visitors. Excuse me. And so he said, but you can come up and we can just talk about architecture. And so I said, okay. So I drove up and he was in Carefree. He was in the Boulders Resort. He had a house in the Boulders Resort. And so I spent the day with him and we went out to Desert Mountain and visited a house that he had under construction, the Luterbach home. And the contractor was Mr. Luterbach. And I got to see, first of all, I'd never seen a community like Desert Mountain before.
Yeah.
Had never seen anything like the Sonoran Desert before. And so I spent a couple hours with him at the Luterbach home and watched him interact with the clients, with the contractor, subcontractors. And at 22 years old, that was an amazing experience just to see that interaction. I'm spending time with an architect whose work was on the cover of Architectural Digest, the Boulder home was, which was an amazing opportunity. And then to spend time with him after that, I worked for him for maybe a year and a half, something like that, until he moved to California. But what I really took away from Chuck, what I started to learn about architecture from Chuck was the connection of music to architecture. And at that time, he had what was the largest and most expensive stereo system in the country, privately owned stereo system in the country. So we used to spend a lot of time just listening to music and got introduced to all kinds of great music that I had already heard and known, but on that stereo system sounded, much, much better. So everything classical you can imagine, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, but we would listen to Coltrane and Miles Davis and, all this music. And sometimes I'd come in and he'd say, we're not going to work today. We're not going to work this morning. We're just going to listen to music. And so he had a couple of Mies van der Rohe chairs and we would just sit there and he would just blare music.
Wow.
But then he would talk about the connection of the music to architecture and how architecture is a collection of experiences, just like music is. So then when we would walk homes, he would he would discuss that, and he'd point out this experience. This isn't a kitchen. This isn't. We're designing for the experience of cooking and the experience of cleaning and the experience of gathering together in the kitchen, which is what the kitchen has become. And so, bathrooms. We would tour bathrooms, and he would talk about the experiences of the bathroom and the views that you could get from the bathroom, and bedrooms, and all the different spaces of a home. And so really from Chuck, what I took was that connection of music to architecture, which kind of expanded when I started working for Gordy a few years later. So I started working for Gordy, I think it was 1999. So I was 29 years old. And at that time, Gordy was, he was probably 5 years later, 6 years later, he was the most decorated residential architect in the state. He had won the AIA Home of the Year more than any other architect. There was one architect in Tucson, Les Wallach, that was competing with him, Line and Space, terrific firm and terrific architect. But Gordy was just kicking out these amazing homes, one after another. And the thing about Gordy is that he had no weakness as an architect. He was really great at everything. So his design ability was obvious because his homes were so beautiful and dramatic and all of that. But he was great at detailing. He was great at understanding constructability. He was great at working with a contractor. He was great at working with subcontractors. He was really great with his clients. And so from Gordy, I really learned what it meant to be an architect overall. It wasn't just, it wasn't just his design ability, which was off the charts. And he was doing his best work when he passed. He was still doing great, amazing work. He was still doing great and amazing work when he passed. And he was doing a house down in Trinidad at the time. And so, and all of that, I worked for him long enough to kind of take that for granted. But what was really great about Gordy was his ability to detail everything. And expanding on that music analogy, he used to talk about architecture as a composition, like a piece of music. So a great piece of music is just a compilation of notes, right? But if one of those notes is off, the entire composition is off. And so a house has to have integrity, like music or a great film or, something like that. And he used to talk a lot about that. And I still use that analogy today with clients. I talk about the composition, especially when we're looking at finishes. I talk about the composition because they'll show me a great material for a countertop. And I'll say, well, what does it look like with the cabinets? What does it look like with the flooring? What's it look like with the ceiling? What's it look like with everything else?
How's the transition? Right.
All the transition. And to that point, Gordy taught me what he used to call looking around a corner. So we look at homes oftentimes in elevation in 2D, but we have to look at how things turn the corner and how those things meet, how those materials meet. And so Gordy was always talking about these things and always teaching on all of that. And he would spend the summers in Michigan. So I had the studio here to myself, and I would just spend the summers basically going out and working with the contractors and the subcontractors on his homes in Desert Mountain or different places. And, I was 30 years old. And I know even in hindsight, I had the best gig in the world as a 30-year-old working for him. But,
Yeah, so it's almost like Chuck taught you how to experience architecture, how to really experience it, and then Gordy taught you architecture.
That's exactly what I've been trying to say. Yes.
If I could summarize.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Gordy had a way of taking ideas and making them real. And that was something as a young architect you have to learn. And it's easy to design something. It's not easy to get it built. And so I really learned that from Gordy. I learned that, first of all, I had to thoroughly understand construction. and be able to speak the language when I was on site. Otherwise, I can't get the details that I want to accomplish. But also, even though Gordy was such a great architect, he treated everybody with such love and respect, and so everyone loved him. And so, we were leaving a house one time in Desert Mountain. He drove a 1967 yellow convertible Mustang, and so we were driving, and I was amazed. He was out on site, and he was talking to contractors and subcontractors, and he was saying, let's do this, let's do that, let's do the other, and everybody was just doing it. There was no arguments. All these things you hear about that happen on job sites, it wasn't happening. So I said to Gordy on the way back, I said, "How do you do that? Like, what magic do you have?" And he said to me, "Well, it's all in the gray hair." And so, which I understand. Yeah. I understand that, but in hindsight, it was more than that. Gordy just treated everybody like they had value, because to him they did. Yeah,
but he obviously knew the value of the relationship and how far that could get you.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I love that. So your homes feel very connected to the desert. How do you go about designing? Like, what's kind of your process in designing homes specifically for the desert? For the
Sonoran Desert. Mm-hmm. I've lived here long enough to kind of take the Sonoran Desert for granted, which is a shame. I try not to, and when I feel like I am, I try to correct that. But the Sonoran Desert is unique to the entire world, and we forget that there's literally not another place on the entire planet like this desert that we live in, and that's pretty amazing. And the desert is shockingly beautiful. But it's equally dangerous. Mm-hmm. And when I first moved here, a friend of mine came out from Michigan to visit, and we were hiking the desert, and we were talking about how beautiful it was. And he said, "It's beautiful, but everything out here wants to hurt me." And he's right. It's not just the things that crawl on the ground that want to hurt you, or things that fly that want to sting you. It's all the things that want to poke you. Yeah.
The sun wants to burn you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, how do you design an environment that's so beautiful but so dangerous? Mm-hmm. How do you protect the people who are going to be in your homes or in your buildings from all that danger, harshness, but yet give them an opportunity to stay connected to it? So as far as process goes, the process that I've developed that I think helps that is, I'm sure you've heard of bubble diagrams. An architect usually starts with a bubble diagram and all that, and I do a form of that. But the next phase after the bubble diagram, what I do is I kind of toss the bubble diagram and I roll out sketch onto the survey, and I don't block out a kitchen and then fill it. I'll draw the sink, and I'll say, okay, somebody standing at the sink, what view do I want them to have, or what connected to the dining, connected to the living, or is there some great view that I want them to see? So there's just a sink on this big sheet of sketch. And then how do I want people to come in? So I just might draw a car. I'm going to have cars over here. And then I'm going to have a living space here and a fireplace. And so I'm going to draw the layout of the furniture, and I'm going to put the fireplace in there. And I know that the fireplace has to be a solid wall, so I'll draw the solid wall. I know that I need a refrigerator and a freezer and double ovens and all these kinds of things. That's going to have to go against a solid wall. It can't be glass. So I'll draw on that solid wall. And I just go down that list. And so I look at the sketch, and I have all my solid walls. Everything else becomes glass. So I just connect all the dots. Everything that's missing, I just connect it with glass. And that's my prelim design. Now, some of that's going to work and some of it's not. It still has to go through a revision process. Mm-hmm. But as part of that, too, I'm designing the outdoor living space. And there might be a fire pit out there. There might be a fireplace out there. There might be an outdoor kitchen out there. There's certainly going to be a pool out there. So there's going to be, and some of it's going to be covered. And I'll take a red, and this is something that I still use that came from Gordy, but I'll take a red marker, a red pencil, and I'll draw the overhangs. I know that I need to protect my clients from the sun because of this is facing west or whatever it might be. So I sketch in the overhangs. But I've got my solid walls, and I've got my glass, and I've got my overhangs, and that's the preliminary design. And that's how I keep it sort of melded into the desert. And because if you're just drawing blocks and filling them in, that's more of a Victorian style floor plan than it is a modern style floor plan. But yeah,
It sounds like you're really taking into account the experiences from the beginning.
Right.
The experience of that the person or people in the home are going to have.
That's right. They're all experiences, and this was something that Chuck used to talk about again. The experience of cooking, and that's really evolved over the decades. There's the experience of cooking. There's the experience of just entering a home, and this is a good example. So, front doors. We spend a lot of time thinking about front doors and the front entry and all of that, and everybody wants a dramatic door and a dramatic front entry, but the reality is they will never use that front door.
True.
So, what about the experience of coming in from the garage? That deserves just as much, or in my opinion, more design time and effort than the front door, because they're going to be coming in from that garage all the time. I want them to feel great when they come through that door. I want them to feel as inspired or more so than if they were coming through the front door.
Usually
That's so
that's
true.
forgotten.
It's so true.
Always.
It's like, are you designing a custom home for when your guests
Right.
visit you,
Right.
or for you to enjoy an experience? That's
Right.
so true.
And it's always tight. I imagine coming through that garage door with bags of groceries, and how much elbow room do we have? But also, I like to design in corridor space. So, when they come through that door, I want them to have a view out the other side of the home. And if they turn left or right, I want them to have a view, something that immediately connects them to the site that they bought.
Yeah, so this question kind of ties right into that. Many of our affluent buyers today are looking for homes that feel calm and highly personal. How has the idea of luxury living evolved in Arizona, and how has that influenced the way that you're designing your homes today?
That's an interesting question. I can remember when a really nice pool was $35,000, and now people are spending $1 million or more on a pool. I can remember when kitchens were a lot smaller than they are now. But now people are putting in double islands, and they want the gourmet experience kitchen. I think that has a lot to do with the resort town that we live in. Again, something that we forget, that we have some of the world's leading resorts right here in the valley. And the developers are spending so much money on different design aspects. And for example, when I think it was the Wynn Hotel resort went up in Scottsdale, I started getting asked to put the tub in with the shower and to do that wet room kind of idea. And that came from, people visiting that resort and seeing it there.
Really?
So I think that actually Joe Costello was just telling me about a pool that he saw that he said it had to have been a $2 million pool. He said it was comparable to any resort, that he had been to. So again, I think these resorts, they really are upping their game. They're in competition with each other, and they're upping their game, against one another. And then people go to those resorts and they see these luxury things, and apply it to their home. But I typically see it in the primary bath, the kitchen, and outdoor living.
Yeah. Have you ever asked any of your clients like what resorts they like to go to or encourage them? Yeah.
Yeah. They usually just come out and tell me, they'll say, they'll show me pictures of things that they saw at this resort or that resort, and they want to do some version of it, But again, it usually has to do with those three spaces.
So what are some of the mistakes that homeowners tend to make when they're planning their home? And then kind of a second part to this. What makes a home feel truly timeless as opposed to very trendy? Because I'm sure some of those mistakes might be some of the trends.
They are. So I won't put all of the blame on homeowners, but what happens, what I see in a lot of luxury homes, because it seems like every weekend somebody's got an open house for a luxury home. What I see, the biggest mistake I see is that they overstuff the home with ideas. So going back to what I was mentioning earlier, that Gordy used to talk about, where a house is a composition. If you took a piece of music and you added some notes from, say, Mozart, and then you threw in some Led Zeppelin, and you threw in some Black Keys, and you threw in, whatever, that's going to feel like a very overstuffed, schizophrenic piece of music. And I think that's what happens with a lot of luxury homes, is that they're throwing all their ideas at once. And not every great idea is an appropriate idea. So you can have a great idea that's not necessarily appropriate to that design. And you have to be able to recognize that. And if that's the case, it goes in the garbage. And the garbage should be full of great ideas. But I don't throw them in the garbage. I actually put them in a different folder, and I think, well, maybe down the line I'll use it.
Recycle bin.
Yeah, recycle bin, right. But that's what I see in a lot of luxury homes. I see a lack of kind of a continuity, a lack of just fluidity in the design, where they wanted the people that come through the home to experience as much as possible, but none of those things are connected, so the home feels more like a showroom.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and I think people sense that too. When they don't feel that tranquility, that they should, or they don't feel that peace that they should. But again, that's how you design a showroom. It's not really the way that a home should be designed.
All right, that was good. I was putting that all back to you talking about music and like where it brings you when you're just listening to music and how it can change your mood. And it's the same. If the architecture is done right, you walk in and you feel calm and you experience the space. So
yeah, and I could talk about that connection from music to architecture for hours. And
are you musically inclined at all?
So, we want to hear something funny, is that I have intentionally not studied music because there's something magical about it, and I don't want to know the science behind it. I just want to feel like that kid on Christmas morning when I hear something and I'm amazed by it. And so I do other things. I do photography and I write, and I've learned the science of those things. But with music, I just want to be dumb to the science, and I just want to enjoy the magic of it. So yeah, I love music, but I'm not musically inclined. No.
It's interesting how many, because obviously there is a very strong connection. I mean, Frank Lloyd Wright, music was such a huge part of his schools and his way of thinking. But a lot of architects
Well, and Frank Lloyd, he incorporated a lot of spaces in his homes to create music or listen to music or experience music. Yeah.
And he used to quote a different architect and say that architecture was frozen music. And that's still, to this day, the best definition that I know of architecture, that it's frozen music. Yeah. Like, imagine your favorite piece of music. If you could just freeze it and inhabit it, that's what architecture should be. Yeah.
That's a great way of looking at things.
Yeah. Sure.
Can we look at some of your projects?
Absolutely,
I know we have some past, present, things you're working on. Just remember, a lot of our audience are just listeners, so describe it.
Okay, this is the Alder home. It's and this is a rendering, and this is in Cave Creek. It's on a hillside. Up north of Cave Creek Road, there are a lot of these 10 and 5 acre parcels that are going for sale, and they're beautiful, and they're on hillsides, and the views are incredible, and a lot of people are buying up there, and I've had a few clients. And this is one of those. This house is very raw. It's steel. block that's exposed, metal roof that's exposed, and glass. And this was, I didn't bring a floor plan of this, but this would be a really good example of what I was describing earlier about just putting in the solid walls and then filling everything else in with glass. That's exactly how this house was designed.
It's like you see the views from the front. You see the backyard views as you're walking up to the front.
Yeah, instead of designing a space and going, okay, I'm going to cut through here to capture this view, and I'm going to cut through there to capture that view, I just put in the walls, and then everything else is where I have to have a wall, and then everything else is glass. This is the Chattan house in Carefree, and what you can't see from here where we're sitting is Black Mountain. So that roof line and the glass all opens up to Black Mountain. So this was a 1 acre lot. The view on three sides was but this view to the south was stunning. So when you walk through the front door, you look through that glass and you've got a full view of Black Mountain.
Wow.
And that
Overhang is massive.
it's massive. So it cantilevers 18 feet.
Wow.
And it's built out of trusses. Sticks and Bricks built this home. Okay. And clients, Frank and Kathy Chattan, were just amazing clients. And yeah, it's beautiful. You can see Black Mountain there a little bit on the left side. This is the primary bedroom.
And it's so close to Black Mountain that I understand the pitch of that overhang now.
Yeah, so funny story about that. My mom, who I think at this time she would have been about 78 years old, and she came out to visit from Michigan, and I said, well, I need to go do a site visit. Do you want to come with me? And she said, sure. So I had a piece of PVC pipe that was I had two. They were both, I think, 10 or 12 feet tall. So I had her go out in the desert and hold that PVC pipe up. And so and I took a step back from her to see how high that glass would have to be in order to capture Black Mountain. And that's kind of how I figured it out. So I stepped away about 20 feet from her, and she was holding that PVC pipe, and I thought, okay, I need to be about 6 feet above that. So that's why that wall of glass, I think, ended up being, somewhere around 16 feet.
I bet your mom helped design this property.
Yeah, so she gets credit. Yeah.
This is beautiful.
That's the powder bath, and Kathy Chattan largely did the interiors on this, and she has a beautiful minimalist, view of things, and that really helped with the design
that
and
floating plumbing fixture is integrated into the wall. That's really cool.
It's a good example too. Again, if we're still talking about that composition idea, other people that come along on the project, interior designers, landscape architects, general contractors, subcontractors, they all need to have that vision. I mean, it's the architect's job to establish that overall vision for the home with the clients, but everybody needs to come alongside and understand that vision. And then if they understand it well, whatever they do is going to make the architecture better. And I have that right now. I have 2 projects with interior designers that have just done an amazing job and have made the architecture much better. And Kathy would fall into that category.
You can feel it when it doesn't.
You can absolutely.
You walk in and you're like, we see houses
off.
all the time that it's off, that the interior, we're super excited when we walk up to the home, and then we walk in and we're like, something is off.
Yeah, some of those notes are not ringing true. This is the James home, also in, I believe it's Carefree. It might be North Scottsdale. They had 2 amazing views. One to a large pile of boulders in the back of the lot, and then to Pinnacle Peak, and that's what you see in the background there. And so the large boulders are off to the left. And I did the same thing on this lot. I went out with a PVC pipe to see how high of glass I needed, how tall that glass needed to be in order to see the boulders that are just off camera to the left.
And this pool looks familiar, and I think has won some awards.
It has, yeah. So that pool was on the cover of a book, I think, for Pebble Tech. And Yeah, it's won a number of awards. It really is a beautiful pool, and that was a design with with Matt Lamb. Collective Construction built this home, and Matt worked with the pool builder and who I think was Overflow, and the client, Mike James, and that water that you see coming out of the wall had to sound a certain way, and the details are very, very specific, but it's a beautiful pool.
It really is.
Again, this idea of simple, minimal, and just how comfortable that feels. But this is also showing the connection of the primary to the outdoor living. So you can see in the ceiling where the sliding glass doors are, they actually pocket back into the walls, and that corner opens up, and that's an outdoor fireplace. And I'm also using it for a structure. There's a column in there holding up this big cantilevered roof, but
In the fireplace.
in that fireplace wall,
Oh.
yeah. This is the Prue house, and in Carefree. It's a Carefree Hillside, and I did this one quite a few years ago, maybe 2018, 2019, for Cheryl Prue, again, a wonderful client, and this one was a bit of a throwback to Gordy, who did a lot of very dramatic roof styles and things like that. The contractor on this was Craig Eckhart, and I knew Craig from working with Gordy, and he built quite a few of Gordy's projects, and so this property was stunning. You can see almost every major valley landmark from the top of this hill on a clear day. It's beautiful.
So this house needed to be glassed to take advantage of those.
Yeah,
views.
even having those columns out front killed me, but
You got to hold the house up somehow.
you got to hold it up somehow. Yeah. So this is a spec house in Carefree, same client, Cheryl Prue. This one's under construction, and we're in the midst right now of putting in the mechanical, electrical, plumbing. It's all framed and the glass is in, but that's a 20-foot cantilever right there.
Wow.
It has a view of Black Mountain, and this is the people that come out and visit it call it the cantilever house, because we're cantilevering roofs in all different directions.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, but again, that's one time I was driving with Gordy, and he pointed out there was a bunch of people outside working. And it was one of those 110-degree days, and they were wearing their layers of shirts and their big, wide-brimmed hats. And he said, everything you need to know about architecture, designing in the desert is right there. Mm-hmm. And so this house reminded me of that, because these big cantilevers are kind of like those hats, that they wear to protect themselves.
And it just also goes to show that a client, this is the second home that they're building with you, and maybe that you got some of those characteristics from Gordy of just the trust and the treating the people right, that they're coming back.
I love repeat clients. Yeah. You don't get them very often in residential, because they just live their life. They stay in the home. Yeah.
Which is a testament to your work as well.
Yeah.
But we need them. We need them to sell.
Yes.
So we can put you on our resume too.
Well, I know some of Chuck's and Gordy's projects have been for sale lately. Mm-hmm. So this is a new house in Mesa called the Tucker Home, and Brooklyn Tucker is actually the interior designer, and she's doing an amazing job. This is a rendering. I'm just finishing the construction documents right now for this. So if all goes well, we'll start construction in the fall. Mm-hmm. It's an 8,000 square foot home. Again, lots of glass.
Like
lots
Los Sendas area or the Orange Grove?
Orange Grove.
Okay.
Yeah, Orange Grove. So it's a beautiful
big lot. Yeah.
Yeah, big lot. And the idea behind the house was to keep as many of the orange trees as possible and design through them and around them and kind of weave the house into those orange trees. So we took what would be a normal floor plan and we kind of pulled and plucked it apart and created these glass hallways, that connect it all. And so the house weaves through the lot. It doesn't just sit kind of as a block, but it just kind of stretches out and weaves through the lot and melds into the existing orange trees. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing those with us.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
It's great to see good architecture going in Mesa too.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Terrific
We're
clients.
seeing it
Yeah.
in all different corners of the valley,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. All right, we'd like to do a couple rapid fire questions.
Oh, here we go.
Something you haven't reviewed. Most important room in the house.
Oh my goodness. Most important room in the house. For me or for my clients? For me, it would be a library. I have a real issue with books. I collect books, and yeah, if we ever go poor, it's because of that. But yeah, for me, it would be a library. Clients would probably say kitchen. Yeah.
Historic inspiration or future forward design?
Historic.
Historic inspiration or future forward design?
Oh, wow. And I'm not allowed to say both, right?
You can.
Good.
Yeah, so I think you really learn from the past. I think some of the architects that I learned about in college, maybe their work hasn't held up quite as well, and then some, like Mies van der Rohe's work, has held up really well. Barcelona Pavilion is still maybe the best piece of architecture in the world, and so really don't have that future without those. But with technology changing how it is, who knows what architecture is going to look like in 10 years.
Yeah, it's true. Most difficult thing to design well.
Oh, a garage. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because people want 14-foot or 18-foot ceilings. How do you attach that to a home and not look like a warehouse that's attached to it,
Very
So,
true.
yeah, I think I've struggled more with those giant garages, 6-car garages, 10-car garages, RV garages, making those look human, because they,
It's a needed skill. I mean, it is one of the number one things that with our current buyers right
Yes.
now, bigger, more garage space, higher, exactly what you're saying. And I would have thought 10 years ago we'd see less and less and less of it just with the self-driving cars and people. But
Well, and they don't, our clients in particular don't necessarily want more square footage in their homes.
yeah,
They want more garage space. So
Right.
scaling that, I can't
Yeah.
imagine
they
how
want like
difficult
a
that is.
4,000
Yeah.
square foot house and an 8,000 square foot
Yeah.
like
Well, and picture a warehouse. So you got this giant warehouse building and a little office stuck to it.
Right.
That's how do you keep a house from looking like that?
Right.
With a garage that big,
Yeah, it's interesting. I never thought that's.
Yeah.
What is your favorite time of year in Phoenix?
I love. Well, you can't beat December anywhere, right? December's a great month. But that aside, January, February, I love those months because we get cooler weather and we get a lot of rain. And I'm from Michigan, so I don't want the rain as much as Michigan has it because what comes with it, mosquitoes and all of that. But I do love it here when it rains. So yeah, I'd say January, February, March, those months. Yeah.
Yeah. What is one architect everyone in Arizona should know besides you?
An Arizona architect or a
Everyone in
world?
Arizona. What's one architect everyone in Arizona should know?
Olson Kundig. Yeah, I don't know anybody in the country that's doing better work than they are. Every time I see one of their new projects, I go, oh, that's so good. I don't,
You know they're doing their first project here.
No.
They're doing the
Yeah.
Summit building
At
at
the Phoenician.
Ascent.
Oh, that's great.
Regroup has their golf villas and they have their mountains. They have a couple buildings in the Phoenician, and their final phase is this Summit building, and it's Olson Kundig doing it.
Oh, that's great.
And we're
I'm
getting
really glad to hear that.
one of their architects on our podcast
Yeah.
here in the next
We'll be
couple of
talking
months.
about it soon.
But I'm
They're
a huge
amazing.
fan also. So
Yeah, I love everything that they do. I love how they break down the mechanics of things. That to open up one of their big pieces of glass, you got to spin this wheel. It's just
you
everything
should
they do
go
is
check
so
out
much
their
fun.
showroom. They're incorporating a lot of those like fixtures into
Yeah.
it.
Well, thank you so much for coming
Well,
on
thank
our
you
show
both.
today.
Yeah.
We're
This
going
was
to link
great.
all of your contact information in our show notes, but if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners where they could find you.
So there's a website, www.spryarch.com. And you can find Spry Architecture on Instagram. and Facebook, although I don't really do much on Facebook anymore. But but yeah, House.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This was great.
Thank you both.
All right. That's it for today's episode of Modern Home Mastermind. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and rate.
Thanks to our guest for sharing his insights and to you for learning about everything modern with us.
And if you're ready to take the next step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us at Bespoke Real Estate. And until next time, keep living, loving everything modern.